The latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, and today we continue to talk about what was really a sloppy, undisciplined, poorly coached output on Monday Night Football as the Jets lost 27-21 to a Miami Dolphins team. A Miami Dolphins team that was 0-3. A Miami Dolphins team that looked like they were in turmoil. A Miami Dolphins team that had a -5 turnover margin. Well, what do you know? They go +3 against the Jets, and that put them out to a 17-3 lead with just about 35 minutes into the game. And honestly, this is continuing to bite the Jets in the hind parts. And honestly, AG knows it. That's why it was a point of emphasis. Remember in training camp, we were talking about how referees were going to be there, right? How we talked about taking care of the ball, how we talked about this is the style that they want to play. Well, none of that has come to pass, and the Jets are now 0-4. The Jets have a -7 turnover margin. That is the worst in the NFL. The Jets are the fourth most penalized team in the NFL. This was supposed to be a point of emphasis, and it did not happen. Now, if you want a silver lining, I can give it to you. The silver lining is the Jets have 3 losses on the season by a combined 10 points, and in those 3 games, they were -6 in the turnover margin. Remember the Xavier Gibson fumble, and they lose on a 60-yard field goal to the Pittsburgh Steelers by 2 points. Remember the turnovers and the pick 6 at the end of the first half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they lose by 2 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of those teams are playoff teams. Then they go -3 on the turnover margin, including fumbling on the first drive on the 2-yard line, including when you had a chance, fumbling the second half kickoff. They come clawing back and ultimately lose by a touchdown, right? Or 6 points, 1 score. So are they still in these games? For the most part, yeah. But it is the same sloppy stuff that continues to happen. And this, quite frankly, is what bad teams do. That's when it seems like how good teams figure out how to win and bad teams figure out how to lose. Well, this is what happens. Penalties and turnovers. This was supposed to be the point of emphasis, and none of that has changed. But, we are the second youngest team in the NFL. We are a team that is supposed to be building winning habits, and this is not going to happen overnight. You have to first go through this kind of stuff. I say it all the time with that analogy of Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. They went 0-10-1 to start that first season. They finished 3-13-1, and now they look like perennial contenders, right? So Aaron Glenn continues to have kind of confidence and faith that this is going to happen, but like he says, the turning radius of the Titanic is a lot bigger than the turning radius of a jet ski. It is not instant coffee. However, everybody apparently could hear Aaron Glenn ripping into the team after the loss on Monday Night Football. And then when he was out in front of the microphone, he was saying some of the same things. Listen to what an angry Aaron Glenn had to say after the loss against the Miami Dolphins. He goes, "There's no way you can win any game with 13 penalties and 3 turnovers. It just can't happen. We've got to figure that out." That's the part that's been so disappointing. We go through certain times where we do a hell of a job, and then we just revert back. I know you can't just fix things in a couple weeks, but we have to be better than that, and I know we can be better. He continues on, saying this is a game where we get evaluated on a daily basis. I think those guys know that this is a totally different deal. It's not woe is me. You can always put yourself in positions to win, and we almost did it again today. Same way they did against Pittsburgh. Same way they did against Tampa, right? I think there's hope in that. We're just not doing the things we have to do to finish games. These guys know we got to get back to work, and yada, 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 right? But like I said, they have 6 turnovers in 3 games that are decided by a combined 10 points. That's the difference between winning and losing in this league. They average 72.8 penalty yards a game. That is tied for the 4th most in the NFL. You are not going to win games like that. The turnover margin has to change. The undisciplined penalties. I talked about it on yesterday's show, how we were moving the ball. We are putting it down their throat, and then we get pre-snap penalties, illegal shifts, false starts, delay of games, and that puts this offense behind the chains. This offense, when we're on schedule, running the ball, it can look good. Remember that first drive against Miami, right? But when we're in obvious passing situations, it is not going to look good. That's the mistakes we have to clean up. Aaron Glenn keeps on talking about it. However, it has to start to happen because this New York media is going to have pressure. The New York fan base is going to start turning, right? I can see the bright side. I can see how if we do it the right way, but we have to button it up. This is something that Aaron Glenn has been talking about since he came in here, saying these would be the points of emphasis. But it's not only Aaron Glenn. Listen to what the Jets leaders are all saying. Everybody knows that these silly mistakes keep on shooting yourself in the foot, or as Breece Hall said, shooting ourselves even worse. Check out what some of the Jets had to say. I mean, Justin Fields starts by saying, it's frustrating. We have 3 games that are lost by 1 score, and that's the way it is in this league. I think tonight we shot ourselves in the foot, turning the ball over. Penalties. It's very frustrating, but I'm not losing faith. Garrett Wilson, who, by the way, continues to have a really good season, okay? His target share is among the tops in the NFL. Catches, yards, touchdowns. Garrett Wilson is earning that money, but he is also not putting it on the coaching. It's not Aaron Glenn. He's saying it's on us. He goes, it's disappointing. It's the stuff we preach all throughout the week. AG preaches it. As players, we got to get better on going out and executing. That's ridiculous. And on top of that, it's when they are happening. And it is. It's really at bad times. It's when we're moving the ball, then all of a sudden a pre-snap penalty will put us behind the chains. It's on 3rd down. Remember the crazy pass interference against Tampa on 3rd and 29 to give them an extending of a drive? We had an unnecessary roughness on Tua Tagovailoa on 3rd down where we could have gotten off the field. This is not what good teams do. These are the things that have to get cleaned up, like Aaron Glenn has been saying for a long time now, ever since he became the head coach here with the green and white. But I think the most interesting one was Breece Hall. And that's the one that's going to get the headlines because he put it so eloquently. He says, it's just a tale of 3 of our 4 losses. Teams shoot themselves in the foot, and then we come back and shoot ourselves in the head. We can't win games getting stupid, dumb penalties and stuff. We're moving the ball up and down the field how we want to. We get to the strike zone, and then boom. And that's the way it has seemed that it is happening for us, right? And I guess it's great that we have that true accountability. Everyone understands it's on us. We know what the problem is, but it has yet to be fixed. And the turnover margin, the penalties continue to be a problem. We had more first downs than Miami on Monday night. We had more yards than Miami on one night. We ran the ball 7 yards a carry. Most teams that can do that wind up winning the game. The Jets have the 3rd best rushing offense in the NFL. Out of those, I think the top 8 rushing offenses are all at 500 or better, yet the Jets are winless. Why? Because of these mistakes. And we talk about how Aaron Glenn wants to establish an identity, kind of change the culture, right? Well, interestingly enough, Sauce and Garrett Wilson also kind of alluded to the idea that the refs are also human, and they also think about kind of reputations of teams, winning teams. Like I mentioned, Kansas City getting calls, Philly finds ways to win, Detroit, same kind of thing. And then there are losing teams where all of a sudden these flags come out and you don't really think about it because they're all little footnotes that add to a, 2-15 team. But Sauce was actually out there and saying maybe the Jets aren't getting the calls. Maybe this is a vicious cycle. Listen to what Sauce had to say. He goes, personally, I'm frustrated. I watch football and I just feel like, and I don't know if this is wrong to say, but I think I get called for more stuff just based off us not winning. I watch these winning programs and there's some egregious things that don't get called. We don't win, and I feel like we don't get the calls that we should, and we get calls that we shouldn't get called for. That I find interesting. We don't want to get into the mentality that the refs are against us. I'd rather it be put it on ourselves. We got to get better. We got to clean it up. Our focus, our discipline, our care of the ball. But it is interesting, and he makes an interesting point that there are other programs and other teams out there that have some egregious things. And quite frankly, there were some egregious things. There was a call on Garrett Wilson, an offensive pass interference in that game on Monday that I thought was crazy. Look at what Garrett Wilson said about it. He said, that surprised me that they called it. I watched it. I watch football. They don't call that. But I'll make sure not to do it again and leave no doubt. And I think it is true, okay? There was a few. No roughing the passer on Justin Fields. Meanwhile, they're quick to throw it against us. Jeremy Ruckert got absolutely brutalized after a play. A guy dove and landed on him. No flag, right? I thought it was a soft PI at one point against Garrett Wilson. I thought it was a soft PI at one point against Sauce, and that has happened a few times. But that can't be the excuse. The excuse has to be internal. Go back to work, like Aaron Glenn said, and make sure we clean this up. I mean, honestly, the Jets, if they do that, they can actually move the ball. They can actually score. The problem is they keep on shooting themselves in the foot or like Brees Hall said, shooting themselves in the head, which is even worse. And what it all winds up with is the Jets are now 0-4, one of the three winless teams in the league, along with two teams that were expected to be dregs, the New Orleans Saints and the Tennessee Titans. Right now, the Jets would have a top 3 pick, and it doesn't get any easier with Dallas and then Denver coming up next. We will talk about what it could look like against Dallas in week 5 on tomorrow's edition of Jets Latest. Remember, if you want to become a Jets Latest insider, click on that join button there in the description and you can become an insider, get access to exclusive content, get all sorts of other perks as we go through the season. Also, in the fantasy football world, in the sports betting world, remember, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM. We get you ready to win your leagues and win that cash, and FTN Fantasy is a great website. I'm talking rankings, all sorts of data, waiver wire stuff to really help you out. You can check me out over there, but let's also check out what you guys have to say, all the Jets Latest people. And remember, I really appreciate you guys growing the channel. Tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. I know it is tough right now, but I just continue to remind you guys, Dan Campbell and the Lions were 3-13-1 that first year. They started 0-10-1. We knew this was going to be a process, okay? If you want to find bright spots, it's that we are running the ball. We can make some plays. We are sticking together. We are accountable. But it's got to be frustrating to continue to see the turnovers and the penalties shoot us in our heads, like Brees Hall had to say. Charlie Field 6260 says, this was a show us game. Let's go. And it showed us the same old thing. Old Dave, Day One Jets Latest represents, says, the New York media is known to be difficult because that stirs fan emotion. We are part of the culture and we are begging for this team to change. Challenge the fans, step up. Expect to win, but remain positive. And that's what I'm trying to do, Old Dave, right? I do expect to win. I do feel the hurt. I'm trying to remain positive here because if we clean it up, and it is obvious, it is a point of emphasis, if we can clean that up, there are things to look at that could be positive. Most notably, the running game, which right now is top 3 in the NFL. This was a run game that was 31st in the NFL last year, is top 3 in the NFL. There's other positives that I'll tell you about. Justin Fields and his running ability. Garrett Wilson and what he's doing among wide receivers. We'll talk about that later on in the week. But then Eric B. Ben 425 says, the Jets suck. So sick of seeing them lose. And quite frankly, that's an appropriate comment at this point in time, right? I thought they were going to be able to get that win, and it was more of the same, and just in horrific ways, right? We're dominant in the first drive, fumble on the 2-yard line, for goodness sakes. That could have changed the game. We get back to 17-10 at halftime, and like, all right, let's see what we could do. We're getting the ball. Let's see if we can make this back a game. We fumble the opening kickoff, right? Like, these are spectacular ways to fail and to look bad, and hopefully we can, in fact, clean it up. I'm going to be here to talk about it. I'm going to be realistic yet optimistic, and I hope you will be too. Starting tomorrow, we will start to talk about what we have done so far this season, what the Dallas Cowboys have done so far this season, and get you ready for week 5, where hopefully we get that first W of the 2025 season for the green and white. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Remember, like these videos, subscribe to the channel, comment. I love engaging with you. Hit me up on social media at Spittin' Speeds, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, because Jets Latest is still going to be here no matter what. We got to stick together. We got to stick with Aaron Glenn, and we got to stick with the point of emphasis of becoming less sloppy, more focused, more disciplined, and that is the first step to a turnaround. A lot of bad habits to fix, and hopefully you stick with Jets Latest as we continue to fix them. But for this episode of Jets Latest, we out of here. Peace.